Have you ever wondered how a player like Samir Nasri went from being a slender, quick-footed Arsenal hitman to becoming an overweight blob? Ever since his retirement from both club and national team football, the ex-French international has been captured in many photos looking like an athletic version of Homer Simpson. But hey, let's not be too hard on him. After all, he's not the only player to live a life of booze and fatty foods after retirement. Heck, there are actually players who threw caution to the wind even while still actively in the sport. And one of them was Ronaldo Nazario. Now, this man has to go down as one of the greatest footballers to ever come out of Brazil. He was quick, smart, witty, and he packed a powerful right foot that gave keepers little to no chance. With his natural skills, the Brazilian legend was able to inspire his countrymen to win both the Copa America and the FIFA World Cup. But skills aside, another factor that helped Ronaldo breeze past defenders like they weren't there was his size. Yes, the three-time FIFA Player of the Year used to be a slender lad who sometimes looked underfed, especially in his younger years. But after all the success and money, Ronaldo probably thought to himself, I think I'd go easy on the workouts and harder on the beer and burgers. And while nobody can read his thoughts, it certainly seemed like that was the case, because during the latter years of his career, the former Real Madrid and Barcelona player looked as pumped up as a blimp. The weight just kept piling up, and there was no way he could hide it from the cameras. Interestingly, Ronaldo's weight gain actually began when he joined Real Madrid. This came as a real shocker, because you would expect a club of that caliber to be concerned about their players' weight and general health. Well, it seemed Madrid cared more about having the best player in the world over the player's actual looks. And speaking of his looks, did anyone notice Ronaldo's pot belly sticking out of his Los Blancos jersey? Luckily for Madrid though, the man still managed to put up decent performances for the team, but certainly not at the level they had hoped for. Now, it's easy to blame Madrid's team dietitians for Ronaldo's weight gain, but it really wasn't their fault, as he continued to gain more weight after leaving Madrid. Still, Ronaldo didn't care, as he continued with the greasy stuff even after retirement. I guess he didn't learn a valuable lesson from another soccer great, Diego Maradona, who was also guilty of blowing up beyond imaginable proportions after his retirement. Just like Ronaldo Nazario, Maradona is regarded as one of the greatest players in football history, cause he hit the subscribe button and left a like on the video. I'm about to make you a legend, so what are you waiting for, buddy? Subscribe! Well, Maradona is also a fan favorite. He led his home country to win a FIFA World Cup and has dazzled the world with his mesmerizing skills and darting runs. Speaking of runs, who could forget the spectacular solo goal Maradona scored against England, where he ran more than half of the field, cut through defenders like butter, rounded the keeper, and finished superbly. That's one of the greatest goals in football history, one he would never have scored if he was fat. Unfortunately, the Argentine soccer legend struggled with so many health-related issues, and obesity was one of them. He actually managed to keep his weight in check as a player, but it seemed retirement was his own worst enemy, as he ballooned in size and weight almost as fast as he was hanging up his boots. As you would expect, Maradona's obesity led to several complications with his heart. It got so bad that his doctors advised him to consider a weight reduction surgery, all in a bid to save him from a heart attack, which was certain to take place sooner or later. He agreed to the surgery and the procedure was done, but even that didn't help matters, as the former Napoli talisman continued to gain more weight. Sadly, his battle with obesity eventually came to an end, but certainly not in a joyous manner, as several heart complications led to his untimely death in 2020.
Football legend Diego Maradona has died. The 60-year-old Argentinian passed away on Wednesday from a heart attack.
Maradona and Diego. Maradona, the world knows. The world never forget. I will miss Diego, and I still, of course, I'm very sad, but I have a smile because with him, every minute I spent with him.
Thankfully, not all big footballers are at risk of heart failure, and Steve McNulty is a perfect example of one. I know what you're thinking. Who the heck is Steve McNulty, right? Well, he's one of the most unique players you'll ever find on Earth weight-wise. This is because even though he looked like someone who eats 20 beef burgers a day, he still managed to play very well. To properly introduce the man, Steve McNulty is an ex-English footballer who made a name for himself in the lower divisions with Luton Town, Fleetwood, and Tranmere Rovers. Believe it or not, McNulty weighed in at a whopping 194 pounds, which is more like the weight of a heavyweight boxer, not a professional footballer. Amazingly, the man had a lot of pace for someone his size, and he could literally give the slimmer guys a run for their money. Who knows? That's probably why he never bothered losing weight and gunning for the Cristiano Ronaldo-like physique. Why would he, when he was just as fast anyway? Moving on, and one player whose weight definitely affected his performance was Benny McCarthy. The South African legend is one of the most popular African players in the sport, as he can boast of winning a UEFA Champions League with Jose Mourinho's FC Porto. In his prime, McCarthy was trim, lightning quick, and sharp in front of goal. His finishes were blistering too, but all that was about to come to an end when he made his move to England. West Ham were the ones quickest enough to get the South African signature, but it was an action that good old Benny made them regret at times. This is because the player, who was once trim and fit, started gaining some unexplainable weight. It's true he was coming to the end of his playing career, but his weight gain was still scary. The Hammers literally weren't impressed with what they were seeing, and they heavily criticized the ex-Porto striker for it. Assuming he was churning out great performances week in, week out, then maybe his employers wouldn't have cared if he looked like a hippo. Unfortunately, he wasn't at his best, and the few goals he scored for the team weren't enough to stop them from smacking him with a £200,000 fine for failing to meet their fitness target. Now, if you think a huge fine was harsh, wait until you hear about Adriano's weight loss house arrest. We all remember Adriano, don't we? Sure we do. In his prime, the Brazilian was as deadly as any striker could be once he had his sights on goal. He played a major role in Inter Milan's 2005-2006 Italian Serie A title win, and everyone expected him to reach greater heights from there. Well, let's just say that weight and height aren't best friends. Yes, Adriano's weight gain practically stopped him from climbing higher up the ladder in his career, and his name was forgotten all too quickly in the sport. There was a reason for this though, as people close to him have blamed the death of his father for his uncontrollable eating habits. His form became so poor that no team in Europe was interested in signing the ex-Brazil international. Luckily for him, some clubs in his home country still wanted his signature, hence his move to Flamengo and Corinthians respectively. This is where it gets interesting, because while Adriano was with Corinthians, he added a lot more weight, to the point where a mandatory house arrest was the only reasonable option. Yeah, Corinthians literally stopped Adriano from stepping out of the house just so he couldn't pay visits to fast food hangouts. Instead, he was locked at home with a chef, fruits, veggies, and all that other healthy stuff. Now, that's just crazy. Well, that's one way a club can deal with a fat player. Another way is to let the fans taunt the player until they start to think hard about their uncontrollable eating habits. And this was the case for Jeroen Verhoeven, the former Ajax keeper whose belly fat was making more headlines than his match-winning saves. Seriously, both home and opposing fans couldn't help but make a mockery of how fat Verhoeven had become. One time, while Ajax was playing a match against ADO Den Haag, both Den Haag fans and Ajax fans sang songs about his pretty obvious waistline. The Ajax supporters were so hilarious that they took it a step further by yelling "Pizza" anytime he got a touch of the ball. But Verhoeven isn't the only Dutch player to let themselves go, as there's also Gennaro Zeefuik, the young FC Emmen player who threw away a promising career all because he couldn't control his weight. Zeefuik got so fat that even Dutch legend Ronald de Boer couldn't help but make fun of him. Call de Boer petty all you want, but the man was just stating the obvious, no matter how harsh his taunts might have been. Anyway, Zeefuik couldn't deal with the rigors of being a footballer anymore, so he decided decided to call it quits. The saddest part is that he was just 30 years old at the time. He did claim he was dealing with some mental health issues at the time, and football wasn't helping him heal. Now, that's a sad one, buddy, but that's nothing compared to what Tomas Brolin had to go through. See, anyone who watched Brolin play at the USA '94 World Cup would agree that the sky was the limit for him. He possessed the kind of ball trickery that even JJ Okocha would be proud of, and he knew how to strike the ball from long range. His skills helped Sweden to a bronze medal at the 1994 World Cup, but he suffered an unfortunate injury not long after, which marked the beginning of the end of his career. Yeah, Brolin became a shadow of his former self as he gained several pounds that made him look almost unrecognizable. Retirement became inevitable, and at the tender age of 28, the Swedish star hung up his boots for good. Fans are getting pissed at players for gaining extra weight, and the players themselves are hanging boots in frustration. But do you know who else got frustrated after Ronaldo tried to steal his prized possession? Yeah, Messi. And things couldn't get crazier. But you ain't gonna hear nothing from me, bud. You gotta click the video to see things for yourself.